Hey, you guys, welcome back to Stepping Away from Lukewarm Living. I'm your host, Zuli, and today I wanted to talk more about this new introductory video that I had posted for the channel. Of course, you guys know originally we were Brownie's Judgment, and now we have transitioned away into navigating away from lukewarm living. And I just kind of wanted to um, read a transcript of the old introductory video voice recording that I had posted because it's no longer there since I had to upload the new file for the new introduction. And I think after I read this, I'll just go more into depth as to why and what the reasoning is behind this new transition. I had talked about it a little bit, but in this episode I really wanted to go more into depth about why this change has occurred. So this is the transcript. I did not know what I wanted. I still don't know what I want all these years later. But regardless, I feel like in our generation and Gen Z, it's so easy to get distracted by what everyone else is doing and to compare ourselves. I just do feel like at times I get lost in my own head to the point where I get paralyzed and I don't know what I'm doing. I just don't know. I feel like last night I was sitting outside looking at the full moon and just being like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. It just feels like I have no direction in life, and there's nothing or no one that could get me out of this other than you. It feels so hopeless at times. I won't lie to you. I'm not trying to say that I'm the only one that feels this way, because I know I'm not. I just like to share what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. I would really like to hear from you guys. What are you guys going to school for? Are you in school? Has your life taken a different turn than you thought it would? I just don't know. I don't want to be in my own head about all of this. I feel like at this point in time, I just want to take certain steps, but I don't want to make a mistake either. It's like I'm paralyzed in the sense that I know that God has a certain path for me and that He wants what's good for me, you know? There's Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. But it's one of those things where if you don't see it, it's kind of hard to even accept that. I feel like that I feel like that happens so much with my faith. I'm on fire for God one day, then the next day I'm just totally confused. It's like, God, I don't sense you, I don't feel it, but it's so easy to go based off feelings because that's what we go off all the time. I can't really explain it. Maybe this is a bit disorganized, I don't know, but I'm just hoping that you guys can really tell me if this is something that you can relate to. I don't know at this point if I should stay in this state or get out of this state. I know there are so many possibilities for a young adult that doesn't have a family or kids or anything like that, or a job contract that's holding them back. They say there are so many possibilities, but why does it feel like there aren't? Because there are so many. I just hope that I'm not alone in this. Please feel free to share and tell me what you guys are thinking. As I read that out loud, reading this, let me see, how many months more later are we? Because this was September. So this is 8 months later. So, 4 more months until we hit 1 year. And I'm just reading, as I was reading, that transcription, I could feel the pain in my chest in the sense of where I was. And I never thought that 8 months later I would be where I am today. So vulnerably, just to talk about that journey, since I last uploaded this, this introduction. I created Brownie's Judgment on September 10th, 2025. I remember I was laying down on the floor of my room and I felt this pull to make the podcast episode. I had gotten out of a very unhealthy relationship a few weeks before, and I wanted something to take up more of my time, a passion that I really wanted to dive into. And truthfully, I had been wanting to make a podcast for years, but I was terrified to actually go through with it. And so when I finally decided to create the voice video that I, read a transcription from, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And truthfully, I thought that I was in a good place back then. And mind you, we're never going to be in a perfect place because of the fact that, we're always going to need Jesus to release us from those hard times and get us through even the nice ones. But as I read that, I just realized how hungry and how much of a fire I had for God, even though I was suffering and I was hurting and things didn't really make sense. Things will never perfectly make sense because we always have to ask God for his judgment and things like that based off of certain aspects of our lives, for decisions and everything. But regardless, me talking about Jeremiah 29:11 and me pleading and talking out loud with God, looking under that full moon. I remember like it was yesterday. I was like laying on the pavement. This was the day before, of course. So this was September 9th, 2025, in which I was laying down at the moon, the full moon outside, and I had such an empty feeling because finally I had, this person that was in my life removed. So I had such a huge hole in my heart and my soul that needed to be filled, but it was a God-sized hole and I didn't realize it until now. As time progressed. And so I recorded Brownie's Judgment, and like I had mentioned in the intro, I created that name because it felt very personable to me and it felt funny, and I just thought that it just rolled off the tongue. My dog, I've had her for about 4 years now. I got her April 3rd, 2022, and she just was absolutely what I didn't know I needed, and I really wanted to tribute the podcast to her. Fast forward to December of 2025. I was finishing up the semester, and I can't explain it, but I felt a shift in me. I was going to another church, and I think I talk about that in an episode where I mentioned that I leave an old church and I go into a new one. But I was afraid because this was something that I was going to have to step into faith, because knowing that I'm leaving this church, it would be the third church that I'd have to walk into alone. And I was terrified because my heart always longed for God whenever I had these moments of wanting to transition into something better, for me to grow more, to have this community. But the fact of the matter is, truthfully, in these churches that I was in before, I didn't truly have that in the sense of being poured into, mentorship, all that in the way that I wanted. And I didn't think or feel that even in this next place that I'd go into that was possible for me. I didn't know, but I was wrong. And so formally I walked away from the old church that I used to go to on January 18th, 2026. And I just felt very convicted that it was time for me to walk away. And so when I did, it was very painful and very difficult because I loved that church, but I knew it was time to walk away. It was just very far, and it just I just knew in my spirit it was time for something new, and I had to walk away. I had to walk away from a lot of people, and that was even a time of confusion. And I remember praying to God and saying, God, please don't let this be too long. I need to be poured into. I'm in a vulnerable place right now. I'm still hurting from my past, and I just want and need to get into a new community. But the new prayer I did this time was, but please don't let me go alone. Not too long after I left the church, it was about 2 or 3 weeks, and I ended up seeing a friend that I had met back in middle school, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. We had reunited back in December at the gym that her and I go to. And so when her and I finally saw each other, um, again, after that period of when I left my old church, I kind of asked her, if I could go to her church with her because of the fact that she had mentioned it to me prior, but I didn't really ask about the name of the church or anything like that, because obviously I was going to my other church, so it didn't really pique my interest. So I asked her if I could go, and then I stepped into the church, and the pastor, the very first line that he said out of his mouth, it hit my soul like a ton of bricks, and I cried, like, like maybe like 3 or 4 tears. I don't know, but I remember tears welled up in my eyes so much that I just had to wipe my eyes because it genuinely was so overwhelming. And I've never cried in a church before, ever. So that was something that was new for me. I was like, whoa, that's something I've never experienced before. And now I understand it was the Holy Spirit. And I felt a peace in me after the sermon finished that this is where I belong, this is where I needed to be. I didn't know if it's going to be a forever thing, but I do know, at least for now, for this season, that is where I'm meant to be. And so after I started going, I met a few people here and there that go to the church and everything, and I decided that I wanted to do like a volunteer orientation. That was an interesting thing because I emailed the person or whatever, and I said I have some questions about it, and she reached out to me with her personal cell. Like she said, that's not something she normally does. And I told her I was honest. I said that it felt like a bit intrusive, like the questions they were asking, and I felt like unqualified. Um, just being very vulnerable. And we talked, and she heard me out. She didn't judge me. She was there for me. I do remember crying on the phone somewhat, a little bit at least. I just released like a lot of suppressed emotions and, talked about my history in a way that I never have had before with someone in the church community. And, things slowly started developing over there, over time. And I started going to like church at night, like on a Thursday, I think, because it was less people. And I got like some release, I had been, me and I had walked, this was the only time that I have ever walked into the church by myself. And I remember just like telling God, like, and praying to him, like, I know, like, I'm gonna be okay, like I'm gonna sit next to the person that you need me and want me to, kind of thing. And I ended up sitting next to a lady that she had introduced, herself to me. And so I've noticed that ever since I started going, that February, I have never had to sit alone in um in church. And it's just like a beautiful thing that I'm connecting right now as I'm talking, that God really has shown up for me. And around the time I started going to that church, I allowed myself to be convinced by someone that used to be in my life to entertain and talk to an individual. And I realized that this individual, this person as well that introduced me to them, it just I felt something in me that it was time to let go, and so I did. And after I let these two individuals go, God has truly blessed me in so many ways that I never thought possible, which I will have to go into another day because that's gonna be way too long for this video. But he has given me hope for my future in a way that I never thought I would. He has, in these 8 months, brought me out of the literal depths of hell. I did not know, I did not hope for myself. I did not have any sort of excitement for the future. I felt very lost and just very hurt and confused. I mean, you can hear it in in the transcript that I wrote, but I just continued, even though it was a mustard seed of faith. I kept that faith, and it has gotten me to where I am now. And it has been a journey. I won't lie. There have been some hard moments, just like how I mentioned I had the surgery and stuff like that, and other things have happened health wise and all of that. But I'm just doing, through God's strength, whatever it is that he needs me to do to reach out who I need to speak to who I need to in this platform, this rebrand is a part of that journey for me. And I, like I said, I apologize if it, this format's a bit confusing, but once, like another 20 episodes get posted or something like that, it'll be just like, not that it was never there, but rather, more of an established new podcast under this name of Navigating Under Lukewarm Living. I am so interested and would love to hear, some stories from you guys if you have ever been touched by God, what He's done for you, how much you've grown, things like that. This isn't necessarily my testimony. That's not what this episode is. One day I would love to do that, but further down the line, there's still much more that I am working through and working with God, But even if He tells me, hey, the next episode I want it to be your testimony, then so be it, But it definitely is something that I feel inclined to, for sure, to talk about one day. But I am just so excited to see where this journey is going to take all of us, and what we're going to discover together, and what we'll learn, and how God is going to refine us and develop our hearts over time, and the blessings and the lessons that He's going to teach us, But either way, that's going to be the end of our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening in and spending your time here on Stepping Away from Lukewarm Living. As always, catch you guys on the next one, and God bless.